You know the feeling. A decision lands on your desk, and instead of acting, you circle it. You draft 3 replies and send none. You replay what was said in the meeting instead of preparing for the next one. You weigh every angle until the moment to move has already passed. That's the trap of overthinking, motion without movement. Confucius lived in an age just as uncertain as ours, shifting alliances, political danger, constant risk of misstep. He saw how leaders froze when the moment demanded clarity. His response was wisdom, not as theory, but as a way of choosing and acting under pressure. As he put it, to see what is right and not do it is the want of courage. Here are 10 Confucian principles that cut through the fog of overthinking and bring decisions back into motion. 1. Clarify the real choice. Confucius insisted that order begins with jingming, the rectification of names. When words are vague, thinking collapses. If names are not correct, he warned, speech does not accord with reality. If speech does not accord with reality, affairs cannot be carried out. In politics, he saw rulers disguise failure with flattering titles or call corruption strategy. He refused to play along. Until the thing was named truthfully, no wise action could follow. The same trap lies at the heart of overthinking. Much of what we call analysis is just fog created by bad naming. We spin for hours because we haven't yet identified the real decision. Consider a friend debating whether to leave a job. On the surface, the arguments spiral: salary, colleagues, commute, reputation. Weeks pass. But beneath all the noise is the unspoken decision: do I want safety right now, or do I want growth? Until that is named, no calculation will settle the doubt. Or think of the late-night email draft you rewrite a dozen times. You think the struggle is about phrasing. It isn't. The real choice is, am I willing to risk conflict in order to be honest? Call it what it is, and suddenly the edits shrink to their proper scale. Here is how to apply Confucius' principle of rectifying names to your own overthinking. Strip the decision to its core. Write one sentence that begins, the real choice is between. If you can't, you're still circling symptoms, not causes. Unmask the hidden fear. Ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of here? Fear of embarrassment, rejection, or failure often drives the spin, not the facts. Identify the value at stake. Every hard decision is a test of a value: honesty, loyalty, courage, justice. Once you see which value is really being weighed, the noise of secondary factors falls quiet. Confucius taught that when names are wrong, reality itself becomes warped. Overthinking thrives in that distortion. When names are right, decisions clarify. So the next time you find yourself lost in mental loops, pause and ask, what am I really deciding between? What is the true name of this choice? Put the right name to it, and half the overthinking disappears. 2. Don't wait for perfect clarity. Move with partial light. Confucius never pretended that wisdom meant foresight. He told his students, the wise are free from perplexities. But that freedom did not come from predicting every twist of the future, it came from knowing when enough light was present to act. His own life was a chain of uncertainties. He served in courts where war could erupt overnight, where rulers changed allegiances as easily as garments. At times he was honored, at times dismissed, sometimes even wandering in exile. He never had the luxury of full clarity. Yet he kept making decisions, to teach, to advise, to refuse corrupt gifts, to walk away when rulers would not listen. To wait for guarantees would have meant paralysis. And in the volatile politics of his day, paralysis was more dangerous than error. We live with the same illusion, that clarity must be total before we move. We demand the floodlight of noon when in truth life offers only a lantern beam. And so we stall, replaying conversations, redrawing plans, waiting for certainty that never arrives. The project delayed, the letter unsent, the opportunity left to wither, all sacrificed on the altar of the perfect moment. Wisdom, Confucius teaches, is learning to walk by lamplight. You do not see the end of the road. But you see the ground in front of you, and that is enough. Practical ways to live this principle. List what you know, and what you don't. Write them down. If the known outweighs the unknown, act. The rest will reveal itself in motion. Set a deliberate review point. Tell yourself, I will take this step, then reevaluate in 3 weeks. This prevents decisions from fossilising while still leaving room for correction. Anchor in principle, not prediction. Ask, is this choice aligned with justice, honesty, respect? If yes, then even if outcomes shift, the decision will remain defensible. Learn by moving. Remember, some knowledge only appears after you begin. The path itself teaches. Think of common examples. You hesitate to send the difficult email. No amount of rehearsal will guarantee the reply. But clarity emerges only after you press send. You stall on starting a project. The business plan will never anticipate every disruption. But the first step brings feedback that no spreadsheet can predict. You weigh a career change endlessly. The truth of whether it fits only arrives when you take the first course, the first conversation, the first interview. Confucius lived in uncertainty greater than ours, and yet he proved a simple truth: decisions grounded in principle outlast the storms that test them. Waiting for absolute clarity is waiting for a world that never comes. So ask yourself, what decision in your life have you placed on hold until the perfect moment? And what would happen if you trusted the light you already have, not to reveal the whole road, but to take the next faithful step? 3. Take the middle step, not the final leap. Confucius often spoke of shioshan, self-cultivation, as a slow art. He told his disciples, if you can improve yourself for one day, do so each day, without end. His image was not of revolution but of renovation, a craftsman returning to the same piece, sanding a little smoother, strengthening a little further, day after day. Why does overthinking consume us? Because we are dazzled by the summit before we have even touched the first step. The mind paints the whole mountain at once. You imagine the perfect career before you've drafted one application. You script the entire confrontation before uttering a single word of honesty. You plan the flawless system before making the smallest start. And under that weight, we freeze. The staircase looks too steep because we're trying to climb it in a single leap. Confucius knew life was not lived in leaps. He saw kingdoms rise and collapse, courts promise and betray, rulers shift like weather. The future was never clear. Yet he did not stop teaching, or serving, or refining rituals. Why? Because the next step was always available: guide one student, repeat one courtesy, make one just choice. He built stability not from knowing the destination, but from trusting the practice of steady steps. Applied today, this is a way to disarm paralysis. Shrink the horizon. Instead of asking, what if this changes my whole life, ask, what do I need to do before lunch? The brain handles small frames better than vast ones. Define the next verb. Decisions become lighter when tied to an action word: send, say, write, call. Action verbs puncture the fog of thought. Measure by direction, not distance. You don't need to see the finish line to know whether you're moving uphill or downhill. Ask, is this step aligned with my values? Not, will it solve everything? Think of moments where this applies. A young professional agonizes about whether to change careers. Instead of plotting a 10-year plan, she books one conversation with someone already in the field. That single step gives her more clarity than months of silent speculation. A friend stuck in conflict imagines every possible response. Instead of rehearsing the entire argument, he begins with one honest sentence: I need to tell you how this has affected me. That small move shifts the whole dynamic. A person wanting to change their health designs elaborate schedules, only to abandon them. Instead, they start walking for 10 minutes each day. The habit grows naturally. Overthinking is the mind's way of inflating scale until it paralyzes us. Confucius' wisdom shrinks life back to human size: one stone, one brick, one step. The truer question is not, can I climb the whole mountain, but, what single step can I take faithfully today? And tomorrow, the next. The staircase is climbed not by dreaming of the summit, but by trusting your footfall. 4. Silence is a decision. Confucius was never rushed into speech. His disciples recorded how, when asked difficult questions, he would sometimes sit in silence. He might return the next day with a considered reply. Other times, he never answered at all. For him, silence was not hesitation, it was a recognition that truth deserves more than reflex. One story tells of a disciple who pressed him about serving corrupt rulers. Should a man obey, resist, or withdraw? Instead of snapping back with a clever line, Confucius let the question hang. Hours later, he replied with care, explaining that to serve without integrity was to betray both ruler and self. His silence wasn't avoidance. It was the soil in which the right answer grew. Our modern world rarely allows such patience. We measure competence by speed, the fastest reply, the instant email, the immediate take. In meetings, silence feels like weakness. Online, silence is read as surrender. But in reality, silence is often the most courageous decision, the choice not to be dragged into noise, not to mistake immediacy for wisdom. Think of the situations we face today. At work, a manager who hears a proposal and pauses before answering communicates seriousness. The silence itself says, "I am weighing this." In conflict, a partner who takes a breath before replying to a sharp remark preserves more dignity than any cutting comeback could. Online, choosing not to respond when provoked avoids a spiral that wastes hours and breeds regret. Confucius' lesson is this: words carry weight, and weight deserves handling with care. By choosing silence, you do three things. You protect dignity. Silence shields you from words that can't be unsaid. You signal respect. It shows the matter is worthy of reflection, not dismissal. You create clarity. In stillness, your mind settles, and the true shape of the decision emerges. The next time your mind screams, say something now. Ask instead, will silence serve better? Not every demand deserves an answer. Sometimes the wisest voice is the one that waits. 5. Learn from patterns, not moments. Confucius reminded his students that a person is revealed not by flashes of behavior, but by where they rest. A single moment of brilliance or failure proves little. What matters is the drift of their life, the habits they return to when the performance ends, when the crowd is gone, when no one is watching. In the Analects, he cautions against mistaking an isolated gesture for true character. A speech may dazzle for an afternoon, but if the same person cuts corners or shirks duty year after year, the glow fades. Conversely, a single clumsy mistake means little when it stands against a long pattern of diligence and honesty. Overthinking blinds us to this. It magnifies the latest pixel and mistakes it for the whole picture. A colleague fires off one clipped email, and suddenly you believe the relationship has collapsed. A partner replies late, and your mind fills the silence with rejection. One stumble in a project becomes the prophecy of complete disaster. This is the tyranny of the moment, shrinking a life into a single snapshot, forgetting the film that came before and will follow after. Confucius' wisdom is to zoom out. Ask, what is the trajectory? Is this colleague normally supportive? Then one brusque message is a blip, not a verdict. Is your partner usually attentive and steady? Then a late reply is just life intruding, not love evaporating. Do you generally do good work? Then one bad day is simply a day. How to practice this shift? Keep a longer ledger. When doubt hits, deliberately recall at least 3 prior examples before drawing a conclusion. Balance the single note against the wider score. Ask about trend, not event. Replace what just happened with what usually happens. That simple question reframes your judgment. Let time reveal. Some uncertainties cannot be solved today. Wait. As days and weeks accumulate, patterns write themselves more clearly than any anxious analysis could. Confucius' disciples noticed that his calm in judgment came from this discipline. He refused to be swayed by flashes. He studied where people rested, how they consistently acted when no one pushed them. Applied to us, it's a cure for restless minds. Don't let one signal ruin your peace. Respect, trust, and love are built, or broken, not by a single moment, but by a pattern. 6. Ask the elders. Borrow another pair of eyes. The Analects show Confucius in constant dialogue. He questioned rulers on justice, debated scholars on ritual, and just as readily asked farmers about their work or servants about their duties. He even listened to children, once remarking that a child's question can reveal more honesty than a courtier's speech. For him, wisdom wasn't sealed inside a single mind. Left alone, the mind spirals. Exposed to another perspective, the knot begins to loosen. Overthinking feeds on isolation. One thought circles back on itself, louder each time, until it feels inescapable. A fresh voice doesn't carry our private fears, and that distance lets it see straighter. Think of the student wrestling with an essay. They rework the same sentence for hours, blind to the core problem. Then a friend reads it once and says, "Your argument actually begins on page 2. Or consider the professional agonizing over a job change. They draw endless pros and cons, but a mentor asks one sharp question: what kind of life do you want 5 years from now? In a single stroke, the noise shrinks. Confucius lived this truth: dialogue is not weakness, it is clarity. His disciples recorded that he would often refine his thinking after listening to others, not because he lacked judgment, but because he knew wisdom multiplies when tested. How to practice this today? Balance your blind spots. If you're cautious, ask advice from someone bold. If you're impulsive, seek someone deliberate. Don't just add another voice like yours. Ask for perspective, not instructions. What do you notice that I might be missing? Opens more than, what should I do? It keeps the decision yours while expanding your view. Cultivate a circle of wise counsel. A few trusted voices, colleagues, friends, mentors, form a living safeguard against the echo chamber of overthinking. The paradox is this: asking others does not dilute your independence. It sharpens it. Overthinking shrinks when exposed to light beyond your own. 7. Cut false choices. Confucius lived in an age of competing schools of thought. Some philosophers were famed not for virtue but for word games, splitting hairs, creating puzzles, showing off cleverness. One trick was to trap students in artificial dilemmas: if you bow to your ruler, you lose your freedom; if you don't, you lose your loyalty. Confucius dismissed this as confusion disguised as brilliance. He wanted clarity. The gentleman, he said, is not a utensil. By that, he meant we are not locked into narrow functions or rigid frames. Wisdom sees beyond false limits. We fall into the same trap when we overthink. Most spirals of thought aren't about real choices, but about invented ones. We box ourselves into corners with bad framing. If I rest, I'm weak. If I work, I'm miserable. If I speak, I'll lose people. If I stay quiet, I'll lose myself. If I quit, I'm reckless. If I stay, I'm doomed. Overthinking thrives on these binaries because they feel dramatic, urgent, inescapable. But look closer, and they're riddles of our own making. Life is rarely either/or. Confucius taught his students to return to first principles. Instead of asking, "Do I bow or rebel?" he asked, "What action keeps righteousness intact?" That one question dissolved dozens of artificial debates. It re-anchored decisions in values, not appearances. You can do the same. Here's how to break false choices before they break you. 1. Write the dilemma in plain words. Most loops survive in the fog of the mind. Put it on paper. I think I must either A or B. The moment you see it written, you'll often notice how contrived it looks. 2. Force a third option. Even if it feels silly, brainstorm one more way forward. If you think you must either stay in a dead job or leap into the unknown, force yourself to write down a third: I could pilot a side project for 6 months. Suddenly, it's not black and white anymore. 3. Test against values, not outcomes. Confucius wasn't asking, "Will I win or lose?" He asked, "Am I being just? Am I being humane?" Anchoring to values cuts through theatrics. If one option violates your core standard, it's not a real option. 4. Notice recurring scripts. Many false dilemmas are recycled fears. If I say no, I'll be abandoned. If I say yes, I'll be trapped. Track which binaries your mind serves up again and again. Naming the pattern disarms it. 5. Practice small dissolutions. Even minor situations are training grounds. You don't have to choose between workout or nothing, a walk counts. You don't have to choose between reply instantly or ignore. You can say, "I'll respond tomorrow." Small corrections teach the brain to resist extremes. The Analects record Confucius praising those who could discern the crooked from the straight. False choices are crooked wood. They look solid, but bend under pressure. Wisdom finds the straight grain, the simple, honest choice aligned with principle, not drama. When you cut false choices, overthinking loses its stage. The fog clears, and what's left is a path you can walk. 8. Anchor in principle, not prediction. Confucius warned his students not to be dazzled by what was expedient or popular. The superior man understands what is right, the inferior man understands what will sell. In his day, rulers obsessed over predictions. Would a policy make them richer? Would an alliance bring quick victories? Would the people cheer? Confucius pushed back. Fortune-telling might offer comfort, but it couldn't anchor a state. What mattered was principle, justice, propriety, humanity. Even if the crowd booed, even if results came slow, the decision rooted in virtue endured. Overthinking today wears the costume of prediction. We play out endless scenarios. If I tell the truth, they'll hate me. If I apply for the job, I'll fail. If I leave, I'll regret it forever. Notice how these loops are less about what is right and more about what might happen. But the future is missed. You can't steer by fog. Principle cuts through. Ask, what standard do I want to embody here? What value do I refuse to betray? When you decide by principle, you may still face difficulty, but you won't face regret for abandoning yourself. Think of a whistleblower who loses a job but keeps their integrity. Think of a parent who chooses honesty with their child instead of an easy lie. Think of someone declining a lucrative deal that compromises their ethics. In the short term, these decisions cost. In the long term, they pay, in respect, in trust, in the quiet knowledge that you stood straight. Here's how to anchor in principle instead of prediction when overthinking grips you. 1. Name the principle at stake. Write down the value under question: honesty, fairness, loyalty, respect. Naming it makes the decision less about winning and more about living. 2. Strip away imagined futures. Notice when your brain says, "They'll hate me," or "This will end badly." Respond, "That's a guess, not a fact." Refuse to let a forecast decide your ethics. 3. Measure by self-respect, not applause. Ask, will I respect myself tomorrow if I choose this? That test is sturdier than, will others cheer me today? 4. Practice principle in the small. Say the honest no to a minor invitation. Give credit even when it costs you visibility. These micro-decisions strengthen the muscle for bigger ones. Confucius lived in a world where rulers gambled on omens, prophets, and public mood. His insistence on principle was radical. It gave decisions a spine. And that's still the medicine for overthinking today. Prediction keeps you spinning. Principle sets you steady. 9. Accept loss as part of choice. Confucius reminded rulers that governing was never a matter of pleasing everyone. To strengthen one law was to weaken another. To support one family might offend another. Every decision carried loss. A ruler who searched for a path without cost delayed until the state crumbled. In the Analects, he told his students, if one tries to please all, he will please none. The wisdom was stark: choices bite, and to pretend otherwise is cowardice. Overthinking feeds on the fantasy of a perfect decision, one where no one is upset, nothing is risked, northwest doors close. That fantasy keeps us circling, paralyzed. Should I take the job? But what if I miss the one that comes later? Should I be honest in this conversation? But what if it costs me the relationship? Should I save or spend? But what if the other option would have been better? The truth is, every real choice has a cost. The moment you say yes to one road, you say no to another. Overthinking tries to dodge that grief. Wisdom accepts it, pays it, and moves forward. You can see this clearly in modern life. A parent who decides to spend fewer evenings at work loses some career speed but gains presence at home. An entrepreneur who insists on ethical supply chains sacrifices margin but gains clean conscience and brand trust. A student who chooses one course closes the door on dozens of others, but opens the chance to go deep. In each case, clarity comes not from denying loss, but from embracing it as the price of integrity. Here are ways to practice Confucius principle in your own decision-making. 1. Name the trade-off honestly. Don't sugarcoat it. Write down what you're gaining and what you're losing. Respect the loss instead of pretending it isn't there. 2. Align the cost with your values. If the sacrifice is comfort but the gain is justice, accept the discomfort. If the sacrifice is applause but the gain is truth, choose the truth. 3. Remember that loss is not failure. Closing one door creates the space to walk fully through another. Spreading yourself thin to keep options open isn't wisdom, it's drift. 4. Practice small sacrifices. Skip a minor pleasure to keep a promise. Turn down an easy favor to protect fairness. Each small cost accepted builds the strength to carry bigger ones. Confucius taught that courage is not in escaping loss, but in choosing knowing the loss. Respect follows those who carry their choices openly, not as bargains to trick fate, but as commitments to live by. 10. Review, don't ruminate. Confucius ended his days not with worry, but with examination. His disciples noted that he often replayed conversations, lessons, and decisions, but always with an eye to correction, never self-punishment. To him, reflection was a tool for cultivation, not a trap for shame. There's a world of difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection is finite, you look back once, extract the lesson, and adjust. Rumination is endless, you circle the same thought, replaying mistakes without closure, as if worry itself could undo them. Confucius offered a practical cadence: daily review, weekly renewal, seasonal resets. Each one framed the past in service of the future. If you can renovate yourself in one day, do so every day, he urged. The point was not to wallow in imperfection but to keep chiseling character. Applied today, the principle is simple but transformative. Set boundaries for reflection. 10 minutes at the end of the day, or an hour on Sunday evening, to ask, what did I handle well? Where did I fall short? What is one thing I'll do differently tomorrow? Write it down. A brief journal turns vague replay into concrete insight. Once it's on the page, you no longer need to circle it in your head. Close the book. After review, deliberately shift attention, read, rest, or prepare for tomorrow. Reflection is complete when it equips action. Anything beyond that is rumination in disguise. Practice mercy with yourself. Confucius didn't demand flawless disciples. He demanded learning ones. To review without compassion is to paralyze, to review with mercy is to grow. In practice, this might mean catching yourself replaying a clumsy email for the 5th time. Instead of spiraling, you note, next time, I'll draft slower, or have someone proof it. Lesson logged. Then you move on. Respect yourself enough to learn. Respect tomorrow enough to stop circling yesterday. That's Confucian review, reflection with purpose, not punishment. Closing reflection and call to action. Confucius knew the trap of overthinking wasn't a lack of intelligence, it was the fear of acting without guarantees. We wait for perfect clarity, for costless options, for certainty that never comes. And so we circle. His challenge is still radical: name the real choice, anchor it in principle, accept that some loss is inevitable, and then step. Even a small, imperfect step clears more fog than 1,000 replays in your head. So ask yourself right now, which of these 10 principles would free you most if you applied it today? Write it in the comments. Share this with someone who's caught in their own loop. And subscribe for the next lesson, where we'll keep translating Confucian wisdom into everyday tools. Because in the end, courage is not the absence of thought, it's the decision to carry thought into action.